Okay, so now we're on page 68, and we're going to get into the 12-bar blues form. So it'd be really hard to actually overstate the importance of this form in American music, and also how this form has influenced the music of the world, right? The blues is the foundation of rock, meaning rock evolved out of this. It's very closely correlated to jazz as well. It's created by African Americans. It's a great form for improvising, okay? So hand in hand with this, we're going to also introduce our minor pentatonic and our blues scales, which we can go super, super deep with. But let's take a look at 68. First, I want to teach you the theory, okay? Because it's always good to know the theory rather than just playing things, because then you can understand it in other contexts, other keys. It's just much better to analyze it. So if you look at our major scale, okay, you can see that we've got our half steps between 3 and 4 and 7 and 8, like we always do, or 7 and 1. And we're just going to focus on our 1, 4, and 5 tones, okay? We're going to build chords off of those, just like we did in the accompaniment for 3-play. If you remember, we played a D, which was our 1 chord, a G, which is our 4 chord, and an A, which is our 5 chord. But here we're going to be playing E, A, and B. Okay, and I'll show you that in a second, how we're going to strum those. If you take a look at the analysis on the bottom of the page, you want to memorize this. You want to be able to transpose it to other keys and really start to hear this form as well. So we have 4 bars of the 1 chord, okay, bars 1 through 4. There are some variations, there are some exceptions, but for now I'm going to show you the most basic form. 2 bars of the 4 chord, 2 bars of the 1 chord, 5, 4, 1, 1. That's the most basic inception of the 12-bar blues form. Notice I used the terminology of 1, 4, and 5, so it's not just specific to E. Of course, in the key of E, it's 4 bars of E, 2 bars of A, 2 bars of E, B, A, E, E. But I want you to analyze it with the numbers so that if someone said, play a blues in A, play a blues in D, play a blues in G, you understand what the theory is. Okay, so let's turn the page to 69. An important thing to talk about with the blues is swing feel. Okay, and I did mention this a little bit when we learned 3-play. Okay, so the first thing is that we elongate that first 8th note. Okay, we don't play it even. We don't go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. We think of a triplet and we think of it as 1 and a 2 and a 3. So it's. So that's the first concept. Number 2 is the accenting of the offbeats. This is a little bit more advanced, but usually we play the and a little bit louder than we do the 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1 and 2 and 3 and. It just helps it swing harder. And then also there's a backbeat, okay? In blues and jazz and music that has a backbeat, we feel our pulse on 2 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. That's more prevalent in jazz, but also in blues. So be aware of those concepts. Now, it's interesting that we don't write the music any differently, okay? In blues and jazz, it's assumed that the 8th notes are going to be played swung, okay? And in fact, we have to annotate or convey when we want them to be played straight. Okay, so the normal is swing in jazz and blues, okay? But we don't write it the way that it's actually played. If you look in the book on page 69, you can see that I wrote out how it would actually be literally analyzed with the triplets, okay? We tied the first 2 8th notes of the triplet into a quarter note, so you're feeling 1, 2, da, 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 right? That's the way it's played, but it's written just straight 8th notes. Everyone see that there on page 69? I want to say also that it's so important just to listen to this music. Swing is something that takes a while to really understand and to get the feel of. It really helps to be a fan of these genres and just listen to for hundreds of hours to really understand the way that swing feel is played. So let's look at page 70. So here's our first blues in E, because we did play a blues in D for 3-play, okay? So let's take a look at it. It's 4 bars of E, 2 bars of A, 2 bars of E, exactly like we analyzed it. It's tabbed out, very similar to how we did with 3-play. Our E is going to be here, right? Our A, it's nice and easy. We just transition from the first finger, 2nd fret on the A string, up to the first finger, 2nd fret on the D string. And then our right hand just hits the A and D strings. Okay, so that's our E function, our A function. The B function is going to be a little bit of a stretch, okay? But But again, it's similar to what we did in 3-play. And if you're coming from the E, your first finger's already on the note B on the second fret of the A string. All you have to do if you're coming from E, like let's say I'm playing measure 7 and 8. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Now all I have to do to go to the B, you'll notice my first finger was already on the second fret of the A string. So I'm coming from this, then you just go like this. You just have to stretch your pinky out, but that's it. So let me play through this for you. It's 2, 3. So you'll notice I did palm muting at times. Sometimes I didn't. Totally cool. I did all downstrokes. If you want to try down up, you can. I do that sometimes on acoustic or classical guitar. When I'm on electric, I like that chunky sound of the downstrokes, right? So that's our E blues accompaniment on page 70. Let's get into the minor pentatonic scale on page 71. Okay, so this is super, super, super useful for soloing, but also for songwriting, right? It's just a great scale to know. So we have 5 notes, pentatonic, right? Pentagon, pentagram, it means 5. Pentatonic, 5 tones. If we look at our E major scale again, this time instead of just using the 1, 4, and 5, we are going to use 1, 4, and 5. But we're also going to bring in our 3rd and flatted and our 7 and flatted. So to analyze a E minor pentatonic scale, comparing it to an E major scale, it's the 1, the flat 3, the 4, the 5, and the flatted 7th. Okay, so let me show you just some ways that you might want to practice this in the open position. The really fun thing to do is to solo with this, but first you just have to map it out. And to work on your timing is great to do with the metronome. I'm going to just play it freely. You can play it at whatever metronome tempo you want. The first example on the bottom of 71 is just quarter notes. So you would just go. That's with the quarter notes being 1, 2, 3, 4. On page 72, I added eighth notes. If we're at that same tempo, it'd be pretty fast. You could do it like that. You could slow it down for the eighth notes. You could also swing it. You'll notice in that example, I didn't double it. I moved it through the scale. Triplets, example 3. And again, you can move that through the scale. That's fine as well. So those are just examples of ways that you can mess with the rhythm as you're practicing that scale. Example 4 introduces a new twist to this. We're going to add, it's now a 6-note scale. We're adding the flatted 5th. The flatted 5th is what makes this sound really bluesy, okay? So here it is without it. When we add the B flat in there, then it gets really bluesy. And then, later when you're more advanced and we can move around the neck, that's when we have bends. That's more bluesy sounding, right? Obviously, these kind of ideas. Those are all notes using the blue note, bending in or out of the blue note. So I want you to check that out as well. So we're going to get much deeper into soloing and mapping out the entire neck and really, learning these scale positions. First, I just wanted to show you the open position of the E minor pentatonic and the open position of the E minor pentatonic adding the blue note, sometimes known as the E blues scale.